start the meeting this evening,
But they can't hear you, Mr. Mayor.
can't see it, I thought so. Before we start the meeting this evening, members may have been saddened, I'm sure they have, to hear about the passing of Councillor Flannery's brother, Michael, and Councillor Hindle Taylor's husband, Gareth. I would like members to join me in a minute's silence as we send our condolences to Councillor Flannery and Councillor Hindle Taylor and their family at this very sad time. Thank you. Can you please be seated? Would any members like to say a few words? Could I have Councillor Alty first, please? Thank you.
I don't think there's any easy way to get through the loss of a loved one. And tonight we acknowledge the loss to the Flannery family, James and Tracy and the rest of their family, who have a deep love and sense of security within that family role and community setting also. They're known to be active in each of the communities and are valued as such. And so the loss of Michael so close to Christmas must have been very difficult for them. And we want to wish them all the support that they need and offer them a sense of protection, really, because life can roll you over sometimes. And I'm really conscious that they've had a very difficult month. With regards, Councillor Jo Hindle Taylor and her loss for Gareth, I met Gareth a few times, but the last time that I met him was on Music in the Park, and all I can say is the pair of them were inseparable, and I cannot begin to imagine the pain that they've gone through. And I know that other people who are more close will speak shortly. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Alty. Any other members want to speak? What's happening here? No. Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nicky Peet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gareth was an absolutely doting husband and father to their two young girls. He would do absolutely anything for Jo and those girls. He had a very strong moral compass and a great sense of humour, and he was lovely to be around. He always wanted the best for the community. He was part of the Friends group when we first started that for the campaign for the park. Supported Joe and I all through that. And through Joe becoming a councillor, he was very, very supportive all the time. He even considered becoming a councillor himself at one point, always wanting the best for people. He was a member of the Leyland Festival Committee, and he, having joined this year, he has helped with the souvenir brochure, the production of that. So he's become a sponsor of Leyland Festival as well. Joe has also asked me to pass on thanks. We've had a lot of kind words and condolences and offers of support, so she wanted to say thank you. And she's asked that instead of flowers we donate to the air ambulance. And thank you to Councillor Colin Sharples. He has set up a link for us all to be able to donate to the air ambulance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing here.
Apologies, my system doesn't seem to be working right tonight. So anyone else want to speak? Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, it is with great sadness and shock that we heard of the sudden death of Gareth, the husband of our colleague Councillor Joe Hindle-Taylor. And tonight, I didn't know, but we've just heard of the death of Councillor Flannery's brother. And all our thoughts, prayers and condolences are with the families and friends of both families at this very sad time for them all. It is, as Councillor Alty has said, to lose a loved one like that, it is a great loss to everyone that's concerned, and it takes time to heal and to get over that loss, especially if it is very sudden.
Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just echo the sentiments of everybody else who's spoken. It's always very sad when you hear of a personal loss of a fellow member of the council, and our condolences, I'm sure the condolences of everybody on the council go out to both Councillor Flannery and Councillor Hindle-Taylor.
Thank you for that. So welcome to the meeting of the council this evening. I'll start with some domestic arrangements for the meeting. Due to the regulations surrounding voting, only those members physically present are able to vote. Mobile devices, please ensure that all electronic equipment is either on silent mode or switched off. There are no planned fire alarms, so if the alarm does sound, please leave by the emergency exits. The meeting is being live streamed during open session for members of the public to watch. And if you would like to speak, please press your microphone to let me know. When I will invite you to speak, your microphone will then be turned red. Please do not obstruct your mouth to ensure that anyone lip reading can do so. If anyone is having issues, please let domestic services know. Some points on procedure for members. Members asking a question have a maximum of 3 minutes and may ask one supplementary question directly related to the original question and not more than 2 minutes. A member who has spoken once on a motion may not speak again while it is being debated, except in specific circumstances. Unless the Mayor gives permission for the members to remain seated when a member speaks at council, he or she must stand and address the meeting through the Mayor. And obviously I appreciate it, that's only if you're able to do so. So before we start the meeting this evening, may I wish Councillor Jane Bell, who I was expecting her to come today, but unfortunately she can make it. But I'd like to wish her very happy birthday, and I'm sure the rest of the councillors here will want to do the same. Now, there was meant to be a presentation. I was going to present Jane with a bouquet of flowers. Unfortunately, she's not here, so I'll make sure that they get sent round to her home tomorrow, if that's all right with everyone. Thank you.
Councillor Holt is indicated to speak, so was Councillor Bell, so Councillor Holt is.
Councillor Olsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I start, can I just explain that I am without hearing aids, unfortunately, this evening, and I can hear nothing really of a clarity of word, which is why I'm using these. If I miss something, please tell me, because I can respond once I know what's missing. However, with regards to your instructions, Mr. Mayor, about standing when able, I'd like to raise a point of order for clarification. You stated where able. So my question really revolves around, is this a self-determination, or are members required to state publicly their rationale for remaining seated? Some members, myself included, felt uncomfortable publicly declaring the reasons for our inability to stand, particularly when the reason may be invisible to others. So would the requirement to stand comply with the Council's duties under the Equality Act if it were a process that disadvantaged people with a protected characteristic? I'm quite sure that members will continue to demonstrate respect for the office of Mayor and stand if they are able, but can you clarify that members can use their own judgment to determine their ability to stand?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Olsey. Yeah, I have no problem at all with that. That's exactly what I would have expected to do. As I said, it would only be if you can't stand for any reason, I would respect that. Okay. Thank you. I believe we've got Councillor Bell on Teams to make some comments.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put my picture up as well. There you go. Hello.
Yeah.
Can I just say thank you so much for the birthdays, and thank you for the bunch of flowers that hasn't arrived yet. I've had a lovely day, been inundated with family, and that's part of the reason I'm not there, because I've still got family here. Actually, he's upstairs decorating. It's part of my birthday present. So thank you so much. I did really want to come tonight because I consider all my councillors, whatever colour they are, red, blue, green, yellow, pink or purple, to be my colleagues, my friends, my supporters, and all working for our community. So thank you. And have a wonderful meeting, and I shall watch here and no doubt shout at you all the way through. And I do apologise, I still have not stood up. So have a lovely meeting, and I shall be watching eagerly. Thank you again for your wishes. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Bell, for those comments. Can we move on to item 1, apologies for absence?
Apologies, Mr. Mayor, have been received from councillors Bedford, Martin, Hindle Taylor, Flannery, Turner and Bell, although councillors Bell, Flannery, Martin and Bedford are joining us on Teams.
Thank you. Can we move on to item 2, declarations of interest? Councillor Howarth?
Hancock.
Councillor Hancock. Thank you for that. We move on to item 2 then, declarations of interest. No declarations, thank you. Item 3, minutes of the meeting on Wednesday the 27th of November. This item is for decision. Can I please ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Jackie Olsey, to propose that minutes be approved?
So these are the minutes as produced in November 27th, 2024. This item is for decision. So I'm just reminding everybody, everybody's had the paperwork, and we went through quite a long session, and a good many discussions were had. I'm assuming everybody's read the minutes, so I'm just going to propose them and suggest that we move to a, well, sorry, that's not my job. I'm just going to propose them. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Are there any points on points of accuracy and questions on points of accuracy?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's on page 5 on item 58. The Mayor welcomed Councillor David Bollenberg and Councillor June Burrows to the first meeting of the council. It should be John Burrows. Thank you.
Councillor Shaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was the same point. On that occasion, I've checked the recording of that meeting, and you definitely mentioned Joan, which is her given name. Thank you.
Councillor Burrows?
Thank you. This is to the leader. Following on from the question that I asked at the last meeting of the full council regarding the £2 million committed by the council for the upgrading of the trading areas.
Councillor Burrows, could I just say this is only for accuracy, it's not the time to...
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Phil Smith?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The minute 59 is accurate in the sense that Councillor Margaret Smith and myself gave apologies at that meeting, but we did manage to join on Teams. We might have been sailing across the equator at the time, but we had a very good connection and joined on Teams and enjoyed the meeting at arm's length very much. Thank you, Chair.
I believe it has been recorded that your names, you were there, so your names are on there. Just having a look in. Okay, thank you for that. Okay. Can we now move to the vote, please? Those for, against, or abstentions?
Just with the amendment.
Okay. Okay, so with the amendments that we've just mentioned, can we vote on the minutes? Thank you. Can I now move on to Mayor's announcements? The Mayoress and I have had a very, very busy time since the last council meeting, especially on the run-up to Christmas. We're so grateful to everyone for inviting us to share their events, where we have met a lovely, great range of residents and volunteers who do so much for this wonderful borough of ours. We attended over 30 events, and whilst there are too many to mention, I'd just like to highlight a few of them. Obviously, this week's poignant and important Holocaust Memorial Day, commemorating the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration camp complex, and the 30th anniversary of the genocide in Bosnia. I'm grateful to everyone who supported my mayoral banquet and also the Leyland Band Christmas Spectacular, which raised valuable funds for my charities, St Catherine's Hospice, Galloway's, Tender Nursing Care and Alzheimer's UK. Switching on the Christmas lights in Leyland started a number of lovely Christmas events, bringing the community together, such as the Synos Christmas Seniors Party, Tesco Charity Food Collection, and a number of fairs and carol services, and visiting the Carr Manor Nursery Christmas Party. I was pleased to visit our staff teams at the Civic Centre and at Moss Side, the Moss Side Depot, and thank them all for their work during the year. It was a pleasure to see the young people receive awards at the Runshaw College A-Level Awards evening, and I enjoyed being part of the Leyland Barracudas 50th Anniversary Championships Gala. I also visited St Paul's Church on Christmas Eve and was invited to be involved in their I suppose you can talk the pantomime that they were putting on, and they allowed me to be the mayor of Bethlehem. So it was pretty apt that to be doing that, but it went down really well, and the children were marvellous. So just as a last thing now, my next charity fundraising events is going to be a curry night on Tuesday the 18th of February, starting at 7 o'clock at the Viceroy in Leyland, and I will be grateful if you could join us, and if you're interested, please contact the Mayor's office. Thank you. I'm going to move on now to item 5, Cabinet. This is for noting. Can I please ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Alty, to present the report?
Okay, I'd like to present the reports of Cabinet, which include the dates 18th of December 2024 and 15th of January 2025. So I'm going to propose acceptance, given that the notes are already out for public view. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Yeah, we're now at the end of the discussion on this item, so please can we note this report? Thank you. Move on to item 6, urgent decisions, and this item is again for noting. Can I please ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Alty, to present the report?
Document for urgent decisions since May is before you, item 6, and there is one item to note. So I would recommend that Council note the report. Oh, that's your bit again. I'm proposing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. From members of the Council? Any questions from members of the public? We're now at the end of the discussion. Please can we note the report? Thank you. And just move to item 7, Governance Committee. This item is again for noting. Can I please ask the Chair of the Committee, Councillor Wesley Roberts, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks you to the officers and to members attending the meetings of the 26th of November and 21st of January. I'd like to propose that full council note the reports. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is that seconded?
Seconding, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions from? Sorry?
Mrs. Smith.
Sorry, Councillor Mrs. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's regards the minutes, well, not the minutes, the notes of the meeting of the 21st of January. Under item 9 regarding the fuel management, it does say that feedback would be given to the committee after the meeting by the head of street scene services. I'm assuming that that really means that it will come back to the next committee because the head of street scene and services actually wasn't at the meeting. So I know there are only notes at the moment, but I'm assuming that that would be altered when we get to the minutes proper. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from members of the public? Oh. We're now at the end of the discussion on this item, so please can we note the report? We move to item 8, Scrutiny Committee, and this again is for noting. Can I please ask the chair of the committee, Councillor Matt Campbell, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to present the report of Community and External Scrutiny Committee from Monday, the 20th of January 2025. The report can be found on page 139 of the agenda. I ask that Council note the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is that seconded?
Seconded. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The council? Any questions from members of the public? Thanks a lot. Nope. We're now at the end of the discussion on that this particular item, so please can we note the report? Thank you. So we move to item 9, which is the Central Lancashire Local Plan 2023 to 24 publication version, Regulation 19 consultation, page 5 to 1026. And this item is for decision. Can I please ask the Cabinet Member for Economic Growth, Planning and Investment, Councillor Ian Watkinson, to present the report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much. So, members, you've got before you this evening a comprehensive council report relating to the emerging Central Lancashire Local Plan. Once adopted, this local plan would replace the current core strategy and South Ribble Plan guiding decisions on the scale and nature of development in the 3 boroughs of South Ribble, Chorley and Preston until 2041. So you'll note by the scale of the papers and reports before us this evening that a significant amount of work has gone into this plan, involving discussions with stakeholders, conversations with the development industry, and of course, consulting with the public. Work began back in 2018 when the council agreed to continue as part of the Central Lancashire Partnership, and since then, several consultations have been held, helping to shape the plan to the version you see before you, ready for advancement to the next stage, plan publication. Members, I'm sure you've all taken time out to consider the plan and its 1,000+ pages, the supporting appendices and the information that's provided in the council report this evening. I don't intend to go through that piecemeal now, but I do want to pull out the key points for consideration when we make our decision tonight on the recommendations set out in section 4 of the report. Local plans are not only in place to provide a strategic vision for the area and to detail how much housing and employment land the council needs to provide, although that is very important. They're also in place to provide a raft of robust policies that are used to determine planning applications. These policies are how we ensure we have the quality development that our residents want and need. The policies cover topics ranging from the environment to highways, to open space, to affordable housing, and to fast food outlets as well. Through these policies, the plan will have significant influence over our borough in the years to come. The future housing and employment need for Central Lancashire is set out in the documents. The report covers both these points in detail and notes how we have enough employment land in Central Lancashire to ensure that we can meet the needs in the plan period. The plan also sets out what I feel is a sound strategy for this borough in terms of housing numbers. The government recently amended the way that housing need is calculated and published a new formula just before Christmas. This has put the figure that we need to plan for in Central Lancashire up in all three sovereign councils. However, they've also allowed a window where this target can be cut by 20% if we can reach the publication stage by March 12th this year. This is an opportunity I feel we need to grasp, as it allows us to move forward with the plan that we've now spent many years preparing and have consulted on several times. Missing this opportunity would mean that we need to plan for those higher housing numbers, which would likely require more housing allocations in the least sustainable parts of our borough, and a release of land designated as green belts. To move this plan forward, both Preston and South Ribble are proposing to take a proportion of Chorley's housing need. Their housing need has risen to over 500 new homes a year, and they simply don't have enough available land to do this alone without releasing green belts. And the way the local plan making works, if Chorley have to review their green belts, so do we. Therefore, working positively with Chorley works well for us, as it supports a sustainable pattern of growth, focusing on existing urban areas whilst protecting the countryside. By accepting some of Chorley's unmet need, it also means that we get more money to spend towards infrastructure to spend in this borough, such as on open space and community facilities. Having an up-to-date local plan also means that we have, via our planning team or our planning committee, the greatest amount of control in the decisions on planning applications affecting our borough. We can take advantage of the other policies in the plan around housing types, provision of affordable homes and homes of the right size with enough open space readily available to support a good quality of life. We can also support initiatives to improve biodiversity, support renewable energy schemes and provide for the jobs that people in this borough deserve. That's why it's considered a sound strategy to accept a manageable amount of Chorley's unmet need now for the benefit of having an up-to-date local plan, rather than risk a planning inspector forcing us to accept it at a later stage. And by doing so, the numbers are still lower than what the government are telling us we need to plan for. If we didn't support this plan tonight, it will mean an end to its progression, despite Chorley councillors approving it last night and Preston are up tomorrow. And this council would need to go back to the drawing board to find more land for development for those higher housing numbers, including opening up the prospect of having to concede some of our green belts and least sustainable sites. Another consequence of this plan not moving ahead would be speculative rather than plan-led development for a sustained period of time. This means years, not months, because we would not have an up-to-date local plan and would struggle to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, which, as national policy dictates, tips the balance in favour of developer-led proposals. I'll just take a little drink.
A lot to read. Thank you. So, finally, members are reminded this evening that they've been asked to allow this plan to go to the next stage of plan making, to be published for comment by members of the public, our partners and stakeholders, and those in the development industry who will all be able to comment and give their views on the soundness of the local plan. Following this period, the plan, its evidence base and all comments received are submitted to government by examination by the Planning Inspectorate. They will consider whether the plan is sound or if any changes are required to make it so. Once their work is completed, the plan will return to the council for us to make a final decision on the plan's adoption, and from then on, it will be the principal document in terms of decision making at planning committee. Given the scale and breadth of the local plan, it is possible there may be changes required to the plan in order for the planning inspector to consider it sound, and those changes may need to be referred back here. But for now, I'll conclude by saying, members, this is a significant step for the council and our partners in central Lancashire, and with your agreement, we will be able to move to the next stage. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that. Is this seconded?
I'd like to second it and reserve the right to speak later.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. Are there any questions from members of the council? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So firstly, I just want to stand up, and I know there's a lot of work that's been gone into this, and I know that we've spoken about consulting with members of the public. I've spoken to, there's a group of us of 1,200 people in Longton. I'd love to know out of all of them who it is that's been consulted there, and also as well local councillors. All of us have expertise in our area that we could have felt we supported with. Again, that knowledge has actually been ignored. As part of this, I want to speak about what's going on in Longton and Hutton. The plan is to develop 270 dwellings on Chapel Lane and 120 dwellings opposite the gates of Hutton Grammar School. And there's also 5 dwellings on Marsh Lane. Although obviously we need housing, and affordable housing is ultimately the most important. I got onto the housing ladder last year. I appreciate how difficult it is for people. There also has to be an appreciation of where we're placing these. So the first section that I actually want to take umbrage with is the settlement hierarchy. So we've based this local plan and where we're going to allocate housing based on this hierarchy, and we've put Longton into tier 3 alongside places like Buckshaw and places like Adlington, places that have hospitals, places that have train stations, not a local village. And then just to go on to the actual sites themselves, Chapel Lane, there is only 2 attachments for that site, both of which go either side of a primary school. Now 270, and to be reasonable with this, about 480 cars therefore. Whether we think that is a good idea to literally plant by the gates of a school, I personally don't. And also as well, as much as I think it's very important to build homes for first-time buyers, I also take issue with building it on a floodplain. It actually says in the report that this is going to be, this site is going to be placed within flood zone 1. A watercourse runs through the south of the site, contributing to patches of high surface water flood risk. Now, what I would argue is affordable houses is not just about the deposit, it's about how to run it. And the insurance of planting some houses in a floodplain is absolutely for the birds. And then when we go on to Hutton Grammar School, 120 homes opposite the gates of a grammar school, I just want people to think very, very carefully whether you actually support that as necessarily a good decision. I'll also just point out that actually that Hutton Grammar School site is also in a flood risk as well. The point stands. Across Longton and Hutton, we have huge drainage issues. This has been pointed out multiple times by United Utilities. We've got houses all over the villages, which their back gardens are being flooded up, whether that be on Bancroft, whether that be on Hall Lane. These issues are getting considerably worse, and to whack an additional 400 homes on top of that, it seems a little bit short-sighted. Now, I've not been here long, but I was here long enough that it was only a year ago that all members were up in arms about the decision for Pickering's Farm to go ahead because of the congestion on the A582. I just remind all councillors that by voting this through tonight, adding an additional 1,000 homes in Farrington, an additional 500 homes in the Western parishes, if you go and vote that through, that outrage for the congestion that happens on that road cannot be taken seriously, because what you're just doing is making the situation substantially worse. Now, I have gone and sat down with a group of 1,200 residents that are all in a group together to oppose these plans. One of our residents has written a petition, which, when I just counted before, is on 1,179 signatories. And we had a fully attended public meeting, which the leader and the deputy leader were invited to attend. And all of these people are concerned. Now, I appreciate that the argument that's now being put forward is this will go out to consultation. This will go to people who can actually go and take a view on this later on. We've been and done that, and you try to find dissent within that group. Everybody knows what the problem is, and this is not being considered. We would have appreciated it if we could have sat down as local councillors and sat down and discussed that with all of the issues. We could have told you where the issues lie. And I just want people, before they go and think about voting this through, to decide within your own head whether you think putting 400 houses at the school gates is a particularly good idea.
Thank you, Councillor King. Anything else?
Ian to respond.
Right.
You want to respond?
Is that right? Is that coming through? How's that? Yeah, thanks very much for that, Councillor King. And we did have an opportunity to chat just before the start of the meeting, and made arrangements for a separate meeting to speak to those residents from Longton and New Longton. I think the key point that we need to make, and I hope I covered this in a lot of my speech, and well done for trying to match it in terms of time. I think the key point is consultation. We're looking to move forward to make the decision tonight to consult, so that all those residents that you talked about, all the concerns that you made about flooding, etc., are properly considered. They have been fully considered to get to the stage where we are now, but the opportunity is going to be there to consult. The first meeting in the consultation for South Ribble residents is in Longton, but I accept that it might be that the strength of feeling around the issues you raised merits having a separate meeting, and I'm happy to do that. And I'm happy to talk to you outside of this meeting. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Could I have Councillor Rea, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councillor King's comments about thanking everybody who has put some work into coming up with this report. I cannot vote for it tonight, even to go forward to consultation. I cannot vote to send forward something that I think will ruin my ward in Farrington West. Can we go back in time a little bit to 2019? Because Labour's own leaflets in 2023 said, we don't mind being reminded of what we promised. What did Labour promise in 2019? I've got a leaflet from Councillor Sharples. No ifs, no buts. That leaflet said, we will protect all our green spaces. Labour councillors were elected to South Ribble Borough Council in 2019 with a manifesto pledge: no development of Pickering's Farm without investment in road infrastructure. Not my words. South Ribble Labour's Penwortham newsletter, spring 2023. Labour also wrote in 2023, we need homes in the right places, and we would not support inappropriate developments in inappropriate areas. I assume my residents in Farrington West can therefore follow that this Labour administration believes that 1,200 houses concreting our green spaces in my ward are appropriate developments in appropriate areas, according to this Labour administration. Finally, Labour said, we will try to find every avenue in finding ways to contest the Pickering's Farm development. So I have two further questions in this. This is Central Lancashire's local plan. it is right that local authorities should work together. Why is the Camelot site not included in this? A large brownfield or grey belt, whatever we want to call it, development that does not appear anywhere. Perhaps I can't read very well. I couldn't see it. There is only a single reference on top of that to high-rise developments in Preston. There are alternatives out there. I do not believe Labour have worked hard enough to find them. That's I will leave it there for now.
Thank you. Councillor Watkinson, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks very much, Councillor Ray. I was tempted to say I'll refer to the answer I gave a few moments ago, but I'll just expand on that a little bit. In terms of, it really is the focus on consultation, and I understand you wanted to raise concerns. In terms of development need, then it's important to remember that it's the landowners in the areas that you've made reference to, especially around Longton and New Longton and Hutton, that have put their their land forward for development. It's not the council, but it's something for us to consider, and they have been considered. As far as the developments of the site at Camelot, I need to go back and have another look at that. But we're at a point where a huge amount of work has gone into arriving at the point where we're at now. So I would urge you to get yourself fully involved in the consultation. And thanks for your questions. I'm happy to talk to you outside of this meeting.
Councillor Caleb Tomlinson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Congratulate Councillor King. Very eloquent, passionate for you residents. But this isn't a given. It's not a planning application. It's a consultation. And I would urge all of you to take this, go into consultation, because if you don't, you're kicking into the long grass. Some unscrupulous developer will come along and will start building on Greenbelt. Where will that leave us? And in response to Councillor Rea, yeah, we did stop Pickering's farm, but your Home Secretary overturned our decision. A Conservative Home Secretary. He probably doesn't even know where Penwitham is. That wasn't our fault. Your side. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have Councillor Michael Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I begin by thanking the officers at South Ribble Borough Council and across the three Central Lancs authorities for the work that they've done on this plan. It's a significant piece of work and not to be underestimated. Can I also thank Councillor Watkinson for leading us through up to this stage, and his predecessor, Councillor Flannery, who unfortunately can't be here this evening, and sadly as well, the former Councillor Evans, who started this process. So thank you to all of them. Mr. Mayor, there are some positive policies in the draft plan, a number of them for which I don't have time to go through, but I am grateful, if I could just highlight one. We've at last got a policy on op food takeaways, which has been included, and I thank the portfolio holder for taking that forward after a number of requests over the years. Mr. Mayor, I took the opportunity to watch the council meeting at Chorley last night, and it was quite illuminating, some of the comments that were made. So if I could just quote some of these. So the leader of Chorley Council, Councillor Bradley, said, "This is a good result for Chorley." Councillor Alistair Morwood, portfolio holder, said 334 houses per year, which is the requirement for Chorley, is a win. Absolutely. We've all had plenty of time to say that what we don't want and what we do want. We've all been consulted extensively as members, but now we've got the plan before us. Councillor Craig Southern said, "We need to get this passed as quickly as possible." As Chorley has done very well through this process, but colleagues at South Ribble may well argue that. Indeed, colleagues at South Ribble will argue that. Mr. Mayor, this is a great result for Chorley, but I would argue that sadly it's not a great result for the residents of South Ribble. The draft local plan before us this evening requires us to build an extra 460 houses every year. Bringing it down to the area that I represent and the impact upon my ward and beyond, this requires us to build another 2,000 houses across the west of Leyland, across Farrington and across Farrington Moss. All those developments with that such a large additional number on top of the significant housing developments which have taken place across Leyland, Farrington Moss and so on in recent years, such additional numbers is, I would argue, is not sustainable at all, Mr. Mayor. They will result in significant additional traffic movements, and a draft local plan provides no certainty that the infrastructure required to support such developments will actually be provided. We've heard the comment already this evening, Mr. Mayor, that this is just for consultation. It's merely to seek the views of the public, and I, for one, absolutely welcome the opportunity to seek the views of the public. But let's not forget that when you put a draft plan of this nature out to consultation, it carries with it some legal weight. And I would refer colleagues to the actual recommendations that are before us this evening, which sets that out in some detail. So make no mistake, colleagues, if we support this going out to consultation this evening, we are effectively saying that in the view of the 50 elected members in South Hibble, we believe that this is a sustainable local plan for the years to come for the residents of South Hibble. I, for one, Mr. Mayor, do not support such a conclusion, and therefore I will not be able to support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Karen Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you've heard, we in the Conservative group have great concerns over the proposed local plan with the Regulation 19 consultation. Unlike the previous development of the local plan for South Hibble in 2015, when there had been cross-party working groups, contributions from political parties to bring forward housing numbers and suitable sustainable development sites, in the preparation for developing this new local plan, there's been no cross-party working group, no dialogue with ward councillors who represent the residents concerning the number of houses projected to be built on the proposed sites in the plan. The Conservative group has had no representation on the Joint Advisory Committee, where all the decisions concerning this central local plan have been made by this Labour administration. South Hibble has identified an availability of supply of land for dwellings and employment to meet the housing requirements for this borough, but this administration has agreed to accommodate a larger number of dwellings to be built to meet Chorley Borough Council's unmet housing needs, resulting in Chorley Borough Council building 334 homes per year, and South Hibble proposing to build 460 houses per year. By accepting some of the Chorley Borough Council's unmet housing needs and taking all the green spaces in South Hibble, they've all been allocated. It will mean it's going to mean the allocation of the green belt will have to come sooner, and the green belt review, which will need to investigate all the greenbelt sites brought forward to meet the required increased housing numbers imposed on us by this Labour government. Areas of prime agricultural importance, such as Salisbury, providing food security for us all, will be required to be developed and will affect the climate change agenda, which this government and council are committed to reduce, when food will have to be imported and transported, when all the green belt has been built on and developers are waiting carefully to see what happens next. Again, as been mentioned before, in the settlement hierarchy on page 28, a consultant, I have been told, decided which tiers of the settlement in South Hibble were allocated without any consultation with ward councillors who know and understand their ward areas. In tier 2, Farrington West and Whitestakes are not even given a mention. But I presume that this area has been linked to Gloucester Call Centre, 1.5 kilometres away. And even though there are 1,200 new housing dwellings are proposed to be built in this area, Longton has been said is tiered with Longridge, Coppell, Exton. New Longton is tiered with Croston, Eccleston, Grimsby. Who has come to this decision to identify which tiers these areas should be linked with? The new Central Lancashire local plan is supposed to be designed to create a cleaner, healthier place where people want to live, work and play. This vision is to provide a range of high quality, sustainable new housing and support infrastructure to meet the needs of the communities, to provide areas of separation, to provide intervening open land, that physically separates different settlements and prevent places merging together, protecting local identity and character. When we look at some of the proposed development sites, with the Pickering's Farm, with 1,350 houses, 545 of them being in the Farrington West Ward, then we look at the Aspley House site of 435 houses, both of these sites having access onto Chain House Lane, then 200 houses off Church Lane, Farrington Moss, all accessed the same narrow country roads without any information concerning infrastructure, developing schools, shops or health service provision in this area. All that appears is on page 40 of the plan concerning the Pickering's Farm site is an aspiration to upgrade the A582 to a dual carriageway. No future development should take place in this area without the commitment to dual the A582 before any further housing developments can take place. The impact of the hundreds of houses that have already been built in the Farrington West Whitestakes area has had such a detrimental impact on the existing and new residents without any improvements to the infrastructure and amenities that their health and well-being has already been impacted before any new development can take place. The development of Pickering's Farm and the 635 houses proposed on the Aspley House land will result in there being no areas of separation between Preston and the northwest of Leyland, and no green areas to provide the green lungs between developments so necessary for the health and well-being of our residents. There are some positive policies contained in the new local plan, protecting existing open spaces, sports and recreational ground, the Central Park, biodiversity, no hot food takeaways, water resources, house building standards, etc., etc. But the Conservative group cannot support the 9,002 houses needed to be built in South Ribble over the next 15 years. Which will require the precious green belt to be allocated in the next few years to provide sufficient land for the hundreds and thousands of houses which this Labour government will be expecting South Ribble Borough Council to build. So if this new Central Lancashire local plan and the Regulation 19 consultation is voted through tonight, I urge all residents to complete the consultation and make their feelings known. But any representation made on the local plan must refer to the test of soundness and legal compliance, and questions are asked by residents to suggest a change to the plan. They must set out clearly and why the plan should be changed. This should not put off any residents from completing the complicated consultation, and their comments would help to influence the outcomes of the new Central Lancashire local plan for the next 15 years. But I cannot support this plan tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Councillor Pete Pillinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that we will pass this plan. No plan is perfect. A huge amount of work has gone into it, and I have my own criticisms. About a year or so ago, I had a period of 8 months where I couldn't drive. When you have to use public transport in this area, including strategic links, I don't see how you could possibly describe it as excellent. But that can be worked upon. The infrastructure for public transport does not lie within the remit of this council, or of Preston or Chorley, but at county council level. And that strategic authority excludes the voice of this council from that area. So we need some work done on that. Perhaps within a short period that may change. Who knows what will happen? But as somebody who has had that period where I can't drive, I hope that in the reviewing of this policy, somebody might do some proving by disabled people and those who can't drive. But lastly, I want to say I'm really sad to hear some of the comments this evening. I have 8 grandchildren who live in Chorley and Leyland. They are coming up to their teens. By the time this plan goes into effect, they will be looking for houses to live in. When my parents bought their house at 4.5% fixed interest for 25 years and £2,500 for a semi-detached house, there were enough houses in this country for our population. We have not in my lifetime built enough houses for the population, and I don't believe we ever will as long as we rely upon the private sector. Because the private sector gain by having a shortage of houses. And I am sad to hear people in the opposition here who don't want my grandchildren to have a house to live in. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Matthew Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to congratulate Councillor Watkinson and his counterparts at both Chorley and Preston and all the staff who've worked so hard. And it's a bit disappointing to hear some comments about not enough work's been done, because there's an enormous amount of work gone to produce this document. We all know that a Labour government was elected with a landslide majority on a promise to build 1.5 million houses in the term of this government. And that means every single council right across this country will have to take its share of those houses. And we can rail against that and we can say we don't want them here, but the fact is that is what is going to happen. And so we have to try and manage that. It's no good saying we don't want that many. It's no good saying we don't want them here, build them in the borough next door. You know, we have to manage the system as it is. And if we don't manage, if we refuse to engage tonight, if we vote it out, then the whole local plan system for all three boroughs will be set back months. And if we go back to Chorley and say, you have to take those numbers, and Chorley say, well, we'll have to have a review of the green belt, then we will have to have a review of the green belt. And so will Preston have to have a review of the green belt. I would remind everybody, not one of the designated sites in South Ribble's proposed local plan is on green belt. Yes, some of them are green fields at the moment, but they are not designated green belt. Not a single house will be built on the green belt under this proposed local plan. And if you vote to throw it out and you somehow get that through, all of that protection goes. It's gone. And then we'll have developers coming in, looking at bits of green belt, putting the plans forward. The whole process will be set back. And that is what you risk. This is a draft and it is for consultation. And the issues that have been brought up on individual sites, you know, we don't want houses in Hutton, we don't want houses in Longton, we don't want houses in Farrington, can be addressed through consultation. But to throw this out tonight would be the height of folly. The height of folly. And I do think that Councillor Watkinson addressed every single one of those points in his speech quite eloquently. And I would point out that the trouble with coming with a pre-written speech means you don't respond to the speech that was given by the presenter. You just say what you've already decided to say. And sadly, what we saw tonight was people saying, well, this is what I've already agreed to say, and going, actually not listening to what Councillor Watkinson said. It is for consultation. We are going to have to build a number of houses if the government's going to get its 1.5 million new houses. 1.5 million new houses was universally popular when I was out campaigning in the summer. Universally popular. And I think we need to take our responsibility of that. Please, please, please don't risk this draft getting thrown out, because the consequences of that are something you may not have considered and you may well regret in years to come. Well done, Ian, and let's get this voted through.
Thank you, Councillor Margaret Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's something that Councillor Tomlinson has said that we all agree with. We've got to build houses. And you also said it's got to be managed. And I think that is where this problem lies. it's got to be managed. There's some comments in this particular report regarding the infrastructure, and it is so minimal regarding the areas of Farrington and the A582. There's a one-liner, an aspiration to dual the 582, an aspiration. When you're putting nearly 1,500 houses on that pressure point. It also says in it, the site should link to the wider highway network via the multiple access points, particularly Chain House Lane. Chain House Lane is a lane, literally a lane, one way up and one way down. All these houses at the moment that have already swamped Chain House Lane that we've given planning permission for, have already put enormous pressure on that area. And if we don't get the 582 dualled, we will have nothing but chaos. What I would like to see in this particular document, and I know it's out for consultation, and that's why I'm putting the point to you now, Councillor Watkinson, that I think the word that are in there to try to upgrade the 582 is not strong enough. We need to be saying we need it. It is absolutely paramount. It's almost to the point that we can't cope without it. And therefore, I would say that where this particular issue falls down is that there isn't the right wording in it regarding the 582. There was just one point I would also like to make. Councillor King mentioned about the 120 houses that are going to be built in Hutton. They're going to be built on the back of 85 houses that have already been built there. So you're now going to have over 200 houses. They're going to exit through the existing 85 that have just been built right outside Hutton Grammar School. Hutton Grammar School is also on, although it says it's Liverpool Road, it is almost the same size as a lane. Please can we look at these sort of points, because they are very, very important. The access points and how we're going to get out of these buildings that we've got, these areas that we're going to build. So those are my comments. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Can I have Councillor Matthew Farnworth, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to put my thanks to the officers, the planning officers who I know have put so much effort into this, and it's appreciated. I just also want to remind members opposite that there's an existential housing crisis both in this borough and nationally. So we need to build for our residents and to give people opportunities to actually get on the housing ladder. The previous government neglected housing numbers and failed to build for the next generation. Now, as an administration and in this document, we've said we'll do everything possible to protect the green belt. Now, obviously, people would mourn if we built there. So I just want to ask, where are we actually supposed to build these houses for our residents and our future residents? Not in Farrington West, not in Longton, not in New Longton. Where are we supposed to build? Now, building a comprehensive local plan is essential to stop speculative, inappropriate housing developments being rushed through. So I'd like to ask members and residents to join in with the consultation, which will help with many of our residents, help get them onto the housing ladder or even move them up further.
Thank you. Could I have Councillor Aniela Valinsky-Gelder, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that it's worth noting, and I'd like to tell people in the room that I lived in Much Hoole for 23 years, and it was really difficult when I started my own family with the sentiments of Councillor Pillinger to remain in Much Hoole. There wasn't enough housing of the right type. People can't move up and down in size because of the price and the lack of housing in Much Hoole. So I had to move to Leyland, where I could afford to buy a house for my family. And I can tell you all about the comparisons in congestion around schools. I don't think you can compare the Liverpool Old Road, which runs through Much Hoole, Longton and Hutton, to the A582 and in an evening when people are coming home from work. Much Hoole, Longton and Hutton are crying out for more houses for people to stay with their families in that local area. The Pickering's Farm needed the fact that the Pickering's Farm development needed the dualling of the 582, and Councillor Smith has referred to that. But that isn't the responsibility of this council. It's the responsibility of the Conservative Lancashire County Council to determine that road and to try and get the investment into that road for better for Lostock Hall, Bamber Bridge, and an already really congested urban spine that all councillors know about here. So I urge everybody to vote for a consultation tonight. The consultation will give you your say in what you want to happen, and that the local plan gives us control over development in South Ribble. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I, Councillor David Howarth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to come back on some of the comments that have been made, and I think Councillor Farnworth alluded to some of them when he spoke. But I'm not disappointed tonight, because I really did expect the Conservatives to come here and tell us exactly where they don't want houses, but not then tell us where they do. So if you don't want the houses in the areas you've highlighted, where else are you going to build them? And during the recent general election, it was Catherine Fletcher who actually said, well, hard luck, you're getting Pickering's Farm, it's your fault because your local plan is out of date. Well, if we don't adopt this, the local plan and local planning policies just are even more out of date, and it's an open door to the developers. And it was also Catherine Fletcher who made great play about dualling the A582 during that election, even to the extent that there were almost promises made that she would deliver it. So it's quite ironic, therefore, that Councillor Green stands up, a member of the cabinet at the county council, and refers to the A582 when it was the county council, and correct me if I'm wrong, who decided not to dual that road, but to tinker with roundabouts and junctions instead. And if that tinkering produces anything like the Broad Oak roundabout in Penwitham, then traffic will never move at all, because that's the sort of thing that county highways have shown themselves to do. So this is to go out to consultation. All of the points that have been raised about where you don't want the houses can be raised in that consultation, and hopefully you will come forward and tell us where instead you want those houses to be built. And can I just pick up on something Councillor Pillinger said, because I think you were most unfair to the Conservatives when you suggested that they didn't want your grandchildren to have a house to live in. They just don't want your grandchildren to have a house to live in where they represent.
Thank you, Councillor Alty.
Thank you. I'm not going to go over all the discussions, the good points, the bad points, the individual points. I think it's fair to say that this was never going to be a marriage made in heaven. There were always blended areas. There are always areas that need working on. And I think it's kind of disingenuous to start a complaint with, I want to thank the officers, because I can see a lot of work has been put into this. And I think when you look at the process, who does the viewing of those areas? Who searches out the areas that are most suitable? Who excludes proposed areas? And I think we need to take a wider look. This is not a Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem. This is a housing needs for the future built on an algorithm that I certainly don't understand, but I trust the experts that do to have to justify and be accountable for. So whilst it isn't a marriage made in heaven, and there are bits and pieces to do, it couldn't be more plain that we are proposing to take forward a consultation period to accept the next stage. If we fail to do so, you are systematically removing, deliberately and intentionally removing, an attempt to retain control over our housing stock our greenbelt land and any control we have of holding back those intrepid developers that will move in and make every opportunity to make gain from our land. This is our opportunity to drive it forward and to have an input. And as Councillor Walton said, they invite everybody to contribute to the consultation. When all the information is in, then we make a decision on how far forward we go. We do it within legal boundaries and we do it with an end in sight. So we all want the best, but maybe our best isn't where you want it, or maybe the best isn't where you'd like it, or maybe the best doesn't exist. But we need to move this forward, or you will end up with houses on greenbelt land. The one thing that you do not want to happen. So tonight's decision sits with you. We're already proposing, and that's mine. Thank you very much.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unlike some of my colleagues, and I haven't written any notes whatsoever. Councillor Tomlinson, I didn't bring anything with me. I brought a blank sheet of paper, so I know you're not getting at me, but that's just the way I work anyway. I'll just respond to some of the comments, Mr. Mayor. Where are we going to build all these houses? Where are we? Developers will move in at any opportunity. Shall I tell you where we want to build these houses? I will tell you. Build them in Chorley. That's exactly where we want to build them. And I have to say, I've told Chorley this before. I told Alistair Bradley, I've been to meetings, and I said, we do not want to build houses from Chorley in South Ribble. So the question is, build them in Chorley. We won't need to build in Greenbelt. We'll have allocated sites left over. With regard to Pickering's Farm and the 582, we all voted in this council. Every person on the planning committee voted, but we didn't vote on the number of houses. We actually voted on the master plan. The master plan that was presented to this council was a failure. And it said in the local plan that the master plan has to be accepted and the allocation of houses has to go along and fit in with the master plan. And that was the reason that was rejected at a council meeting, at a planning meeting. Again, I haven't come prepared, so I'm just speaking as a... And there was a comment made about we would have to review the Greenbelt. Greenbelt has already been reviewed. South Ribble have reviewed its Greenbelt. Chorley have reviewed their Greenbelt. And Preston have reviewed their Greenbelt. The Greenbelt in Chorley, of course, is that they decided they didn't want a Greenbelt. It was far easier to build those houses in South Ribble. That's a huge mistake. If we can go back to previous, I mean, we've been through this once before, and I know you have, Councillor Tomlinson. And when we did this last time, 2000, whatever it was, 15, 14, few took years for that to happen. This was a very, very different process. A very different process. We had round the table meetings, cross-party meetings in this very, very room where we discuss where we would want to build and not want to build. We put houses forward where we would know would be perhaps unpopular, but we realised at that time that the council needed to build houses. And during that process, obviously, it then goes to what is the JAC meetings. And at that time, we had lots of meetings. And over the last few years, I'll say in 2015 and 16, we had meetings here. We were discussing through our cross-party group here, but those meetings stopped 2.5 years ago, we never had any meetings. I think the last one was in 2002. I attended most of those meetings. And to be quite honest, that was the time to consult. That is the time to consult people who want to have a say. That was the time to consult about this meeting, that we could agree before we got here a way forward. Those meetings will absolutely stop. They'll put a stop to. At council meetings, you will note that we've asked for those meetings to be reconstituted. There was a direct refusal. A direct refusal. I have to say, over the Councillor Watkinson, you've got a good presentation, thank you. And you were in a position where you decided that that had probably gone on long enough and you would talk to us. Unfortunately, and it's not your fault because you're fairly new to this, as in that position, it's too little too late. It was far too little too late, and it's given us no option not to support this, which is sad. It's sad. I know there's a lot of work going on, and I've listened to some of the consultants at these meetings talk for an hour on a Teams meeting with no notes, no nothing, and you sit there and you with a blank sheet of paper and think, what on earth are they talking about? And nothing is backed up with any information. Anyway, I think that's about all I have to say. I think I've covered. One thing again, at one of these meetings, we were talking about the methodology. I think Councillor Alty mentioned any opportunity, and it's an algorithm. Well, it might very well have been an algorithm, but what was put forward was the methodology of the number of houses and type of houses and where we were going to build them. I pointed out at that stage that the methodology, we didn't support it. The methodology was wrong. It was saying it was wrong. So, and I think that is probably about it. Oh, there's a mention of the Camelot site, and I know you're going to have a look at the Camelot site. But as far as I could see, that is a very, very large site in Chorley, very large. And as far as I can see, it's a brownfield site. A lot of it is derelict. It may very well be in a greenbelt area, but it's a brownfield site in greenbelt, and I don't see any reason that Chorley couldn't, if they wanted to bring that forward.
Okay, Councillor Smith, thank you for that.
Can you switch me back on again, and I'll thank you and the members for listening, and again thank Councillor Watkinson for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I have Councillor Conor Watson, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've heard of a lot of dismissive responses to many good points our group has made on this issue, as happens time and time again. It's especially galling, as had some of the same points been made to the Labour group in Chorley, and had they listened rather than lazily dismissing out of their own hand any views but their own, that we in South Ribble wouldn't be about to bail them out with a temporary reprieve to a problem many years in the making, which has been amplified by the consistent need for them to play politics, as is happening here and now, leading them to claim no available land and planning committees opposing legitimate sites at a great cost and loss of power by being put on the naughty step. This consultation in name only hastens us to a position of an immediate Greenbelt review. It certainly does not protect us from it, causing irreversible damage to South Ribble. A one-size-fits-all dictate from central government pushes houses needed in the south, and especially London, onto an area with no sensible land left to build on. It risks the future of the countryside and the essential role it plays. Rather than bending to the knee of Alistair Bradley and Angela Rayner, we should be sending a clear message to the government to say, look elsewhere for suitable sites. South Ribble is full and can handle no more. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't appear to have any more members wanting to speak. So I'm just going to ask the questioner. So,
Councillor Buttery.
Okay, I'll allow Councillor Buttery to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Deputy Leader said earlier about living in Much Hoole and not being able to afford the prices of the houses in the area. If you intend moving to Longton, you can't even afford a terrace property, and Storey Homes will be building those properties. So I'm sorry, you won't be buying them there.
To respond next, public questions.
Thank you for that, but I'm just going to move to the general public to see if there's any questions. There you are. Is this for Councillor?
Yeah, just the question that's been received.
And is he going to respond?
I think. Yeah, you can just respond to it.
Respond to that, please. Councillor Watkinson. Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Is it Mr. Thorpe? Have I got his name right? Yes. Thanks very much for the questions, Mr. Thorpe. So in terms of the transitional arrangements referred to in the council report, though, are those related to plan making cited within Annex 1 of the National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF. So the NPPF's transitional arrangements vary depending on the stage a plan has reached. The council decision paper proposes to make use of the arrangement under para 234A of the NPPF, and this sets out that where a plan has reached Regulation 19, the publication stage, on or before the 12th of March 2025, it can continue with its draft housing requirement, provided this meets 80% of housing need. Housing need is that defined by the government using a methodology known as the standard method. If we don't meet the transitional arrangements, 489 dwellings per annum would be the starting point from which we would need to plan for. And Mr. Thorpe's correct that the government's consultation last summer did refer to a higher figure of 546 homes per year. However, the plan before us this evening proposes an even lower figure of 460 homes per year, which is why it's a good strategy for this borough. And that was Mr. Thorpe's first question. So I'll move on to answer the second question.
You need to come down to a microphone, please, Mr. Thorpe.
I appreciate these questions are technical, and I'm a layman. I'm a resident in South Ribble. But looking through this very, very lengthy document, and I'm sure all of you have read every single paragraph, maybe selective, but can you please tell me where the 460 figure came from?
Okay. You want to come back? Yep.
Yeah, the short answer is the housing needs study confirms that it's 460. There's a great deal of detail, which I'm not suggesting I'm going to try and cover that right now, but I'm happy to discuss it outside of this meeting.
Because you had consultants who came up in the original CLLP with the 1-to-1 employment ratio, which I think said 416. Then Angela Rayner came in with this larger figure, and I'm not sure where that fell from. Anyway, thank you for that. The other question is on a point of interest to probably those residents and the general public. It is a very lengthy document, and there are tables in that, which is my second question. Could somebody please just do an analysis on a table of the pre-adoption sites, the strategic sites, the housing allocation sites, and the mixed-use sites? Because all these sites are dotted around this 2026 document, and it's very difficult to establish what actual housing numbers are being promoted by all three councils. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, and thanks very much for sending the question in advance. So I'll answer it by saying it's recognised that the document and the associated appendices are lengthy, very lengthy, and can be difficult for the public to review. And thanks very much, Mr. Thorpe, for your comments and input, which is appreciated. I've asked officers to consider whether Mr. Thorpe's suggested table can be provided to support the consultation. All residents should know that officers are available for queries during the consultation period, and will provide those contact details. And there are also specific events that the public you can also attend to ask those questions. So we'll make those opportunities for you, Mr. Thorpe.
For hearing me, and I'd just like to thank you again, and I trust that people concur with Councillor Alfrey and Councillor Tomlinson that vote to approve this. I appreciate further consultation needs to take place, but this needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Thorpe. Any other questions from members of the public? Sorry?
They're on to these.
No. Watkinson, to sum up then, please, before we take the vote.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, and sincerely thank you for all the comments. They're all noted, and there are things that we can take back and look at. But clearly the consultation will be underway depending on the outcome of the vote that's coming up shortly. And colleagues have already covered their own thoughts about the need for us to move forward, and we'd welcome everybody to vote the right way with this. So I don't want to go, we've been on this quite some time, and a lot of ground has been covered. I think I covered a lot of things in my speech, and I think I'll finish with this in just saying there's a lot of reference to Chorley, and Chorley, why don't we give it to Chorley, if only it was that simple. And Councillor Smith knows it's not that simple. If only we could give it to Chorley. And another comment, I think, from Councillor, I think it was Councillor Smith or was it Councillor Green, and thanks for those warm words as well, was somebody made reference to it being a good result for Chorley. It's a good result for South Ribble. If we move forward tonight, it's a good result for South Ribble, and if Preston vote it through tomorrow, it's a good result for Preston. And we're going to remove the risk that a lot of people have made reference to. So I'd encourage you all to support it. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks for your comments. And also everybody else beat me to it. I was saving the thanks for staff and officers until the end. In particular, Gail Wootton's led the team with Lizzie Hindle, officers from the other councils, and do you know what? I was going to thank County Councillor and Councillor Michael Green. He's been very supportive. Lancashire County Council have played quite a part in this. So thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We're now in a position to go for the vote on the recommendations that are on the report. And I now ask members to vote, please, for, against, or abstentions. And I now move on to item 10, nomination of Mayor-elect and Deputy Mayor-elect for 2025-26. This item is for decision. And can I please ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Jackie Alty, to present the report? Thank you.
It's my pleasure tonight to propose that we take a vote in adopting Councillor Paul Wharton-Hardman, BEM, to be nominated as Mayor-elect for 2025 and 2026, and that Councillor Caleb Tomlinson be nominated Deputy Mayor for 2025 and 2026, with a view to working together and moving forward. That is my recommendation, and I'm happy to propose it. Thank you.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you.
No.
Councillor Mrs Smith?
Mr Mayor, I would like to move an amendment, please. I have given it to you. I would formally like to propose that the vote for the Mayor and Deputy Mayor for 2025-26 is taken separately. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? Does anyone want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Howarth?
Well, I don't particularly want to speak on the amendment, but I will because it's now been put. I wanted to speak on the whole process that's been adopted. I've got no comments to make about the two individuals. The comment I would like to make is the policy by which it's been arrived at. This council, for many years, had a means of nominating a mayor and deputy mayor depending on which party they belonged to, and whoever was in power got the lion's share, if not all, of the nominations. I remember somebody asking me some years ago, how do you get to be mayor of South Ribble? I said, well, to start with, you have to be a member of the Conservative Party. So on the back of that, to try and make the nomination of mayor and deputy mayor fair and equitable based on length of service and a rotation between the political parties, this council adopted a policy. And that policy now seems to have been thrown in the bin because once again, we have one party in overall control and they are deciding that we're going to have all the mayors and all the deputy mayors, and they've thrown that policy in the bin. That is contempt for this council, and it's also pretty insulting to all the people who worked on putting that policy together, where we thought when we'd adopted it, we'd actually move forward to a fair process, and we would have put behind us this political Punch and Judy show of politicising the mayoralty based on which party is in control. So on that basis, I really say a plague on both your houses, and as our group, because of the fact that you've just binned this policy that the council adopted, we will be abstaining.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no more questions then, so we'll take a vote on the amendment, which is to split. I understand it's to split the nominations for mayor and deputy mayor. Okay. Okay, everybody understand that? Can we vote for, against, or to abstain? Councillor Hayden, Williams.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I believe in the council constitution, and the monitoring officer might be able to correct me, that the vote is taken together and it isn't split, and that has been throughout the past number of years. And I believe this happened last year where we tried to split the vote, and then it was part of the actual constitution. That isn't possible. Can the monitoring officer clarify that for me?
Yes, Councillor Williams, it was raised as a query last year. It was custom and practice that the votes were taken together and they were done, but it's not a requirement of the Constitution that they're taken together. I think there is an expectation that they are, but there is a motion before you, or an amendment to the proposal before you to take them separately. So you can either remain with the custom and practice, or you can take a different approach.
Okay, can we get back to the vote, which is on the amendment? Okay, thank you.
It's, yeah,
I think the amendment's been lost.
Yeah.
The amendment has been lost.
Does anybody want to speak to the substantive?
Yeah. So we're back to the substantive. Anybody want to speak on that, please? Any councillors? Councillor Walton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On this occasion, we will not be supporting the nomination for the Mayor of South Ribble for 2025-26. Unfortunately, due to the vote not being separated with this will also have to apply to the nomination for Deputy Mayor as well. Sorry. Okay.
Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to the leader for, governing's not easy, and applying a policy always requires interpretation. And I think the pragmatism that you've shown interpreting the policy of elected or proposing or mayor and deputy mayor is brilliant. I'm surprised our colleagues in Liberal Democrats have put aside proportionality this evening, which is very interesting. I look forward to voting for Councillor Paul Walton-Hardman and Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. We're in for an interesting and fun 2 years.
Councillor Alty?
Thank you, Mayor. I look back on the corridor outside and there is row upon row upon row upon row, and the comments that I receive is, well, it was proportionate. So regardless of the policy, looking back over the last 5 years, we had 2.5 years of a Lib Dem. We had 2.5 years of Labour, and we've had yourself this year. I don't believe that moving forward without addressing the proportionality of this chamber is appropriate. So that is why I took the decision not to observe the protocol that we'd put together, but to actually move forward with a proportionality move. I also am looking forward to an eventful 2 years, and I actually would like to caution, and I use that word strongly, any dissemination of unfounded accusations. I spoke with leaders of both parties this morning and this afternoon, and I advised them there was no formal base for a discussion outside of the workplace, and to do anything else would bring the council under question. It would bring me under question. It would actually bring our duty to address GDPR and protected characteristics. And I feel like a small breach through the door has been a wedge open to allow for unfounded or unverified commentary. Everybody is at liberty to discuss exactly what they want, but I explained this morning the circumstances. I gave clear, explicit information that from those agencies who have governance in the matters dripped into this meeting, there is no foundation, and you do so at your risk, because having had that information, you have chosen to put a wedge in a door that is neither necessary nor is it substantiated. I'm going to leave that there, and I want to thank everybody for the support on this side of the chamber and for unspoken support elsewhere. And I just want to say, none of us are perfect. Whether you believe in heaven or hell or anything else, redemption is always an option. And I think categorising, putting people in boxes, allowing no room for growth is a despicable way to view another human being. I refuse to tolerate it in my own life. I check myself regularly, and I urge members to take the same stance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. Don't to,
Technically, it's closed as Jackie Sundell, but if you want to bring in Councillor Howard, then
no. So Councillor Halsey, I'm taking that as though you summed up there. And so we're now going to move to the vote. Sorry, I'm not accepting it. Right, I'll allow that then.
There was an inference from Councillor Alty that both the other two parties were somehow implicated in raising this evening. I gave Councillor Alty my assurance that I had no intention of doing so, and therefore our meeting wasn't even necessary. So I would like that on record.
Okay, Councillor Alty, do you want to reply to that?
I would like to confirm that I was not referring in the least to Councillor Howard being implicated in anything. So I apologise if that was the kind of obvious thing. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so we're now going to move to the vote. The recommendation is that Councillor Paul Walton-Hardman be nominated as Mayor-elect for 2025-26, and that Councillor Caleb Tomlinson be nominated Deputy for 2025-26, with a view to becoming the Mayor in 26-27. Okay? Okay. Okay. Councillor Paul Walton-Hardman and to Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. Can we now move to item 11, the calendar of meetings for 25-26, and this is an item for decision. And can I ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Alty, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Agenda item 11 is to provide members notice of and to seek approval for the proposed council calendar of meetings scheduled for the 2025-26 municipal year. And with an amendment, the May Council, with an amendment to the May Council, the mayor making ceremony will take place on 1 week as detailed, but the following week will be an annual council meeting. So there's just one added date to go in following the mayor making. Other than that, it's proposed as it stands. Thank you.
Seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Karen Walton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As looking at the timetable of meetings, there are already two council meetings in May, one on the 14th, which says the annual council meeting, and one on the Wednesday the 21st, which has an asterisk, which says mayor making ceremony. So are they the two dates that we have, or will there be an extra meeting?
Want to respond? Councillor Alty, do you want to respond to that?
I'll have to come back to you on that. I've got the information, but I need to make sure it's right. As far as I am aware, it was detailed as it's switching them over. So my apologies for the confusion. Yeah, fully appreciate that. Thanks for raising it.
So are we okay without that alteration then? Is that what we're saying? Yes? Right, thank you. So are there any questions from members of the council? No. Any questions from members of the public? No. We're at the end of the debate on this proposal. So can we now vote, please? Thank you very much for that. That's been carried. Thanks. We move to item 12, polling districts and polling place review. This item again is for decision. And can I please ask the returning officer, Chris Sinnott, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a statutory requirement it's a statutory requirement for the council to undertake a review of its polling districts and places on a 5-year rolling programme. We've done that. The report sets out the consultation that was undertaken, the responses received, and the recommendations are then set out for what polling places and districts should be in Appendix 1. So I'd like to present that for the leader to propose.
Thank you for that. Do we have a proposer? Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the council? No. Any questions from members of the... I didn't see Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through all of the excitement this evening, I've just lost my place in there. But and it was regard to the Buckshaw and Worden and the polling stations, and I see one's at the Buckshaw Village Community Centre, and the other one at Prospect House. And I think there's something in the text somewhere about it being in Worden Park, but Worden Park and the car park is too far away from Worden Hall. I know that we have a mobile unit, I think, in Walton Dale somewhere, and I think it would be very helpful for the people that live round there locally to have a mobile unit on the car park itself, rather than walk right across the Worden Park to get to vote. I'm just asking really whether that could be considered, maybe not today, but at another stage. I don't know, but I think that would be very helpful for the people that live there locally, that they don't have to go to the other part of Leyland, if you like, to Prospect House. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you,
Matthew Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure that Councillor Pillinger and Councillor Roberts are grateful for Councillor Smith saying where their voters should vote. But Prospect House is actually in Leyland Central Ward. It's not on the park. We've been through this in the past in Leyland looking for polling stations. There simply isn't a public building that's prepared to take a polling station in the Werden part of Buckshaw and Werden. Runcher College have been approached, Balshaws have been approached. Prospect House, whilst it's not technically in the ward, very accessible. It's got a very big car park and is walking distance from many residents. And as I have to say, because it's in Leyland Central Ward, is used as one of their polling stations as well. Our staff have managed that really well in the past. And there doesn't seem to be a groundswell of opinion coming from voters in our part of Leyland that says it ought to change.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Sure that we can take that on board and look into it if that's the case. Can I speak to? Can I ask Councillor George Rea, please?
My question's already been covered by Councillor Smith.
Councillor Pete Pillinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From one of the councillors for Buckshaw and Werden, I'm very grateful for somebody paying some attention to the fact that there are no polling stations in the ward. When I was first elected, I had a look at this fairly carefully. There is only, I think, the Bobbin Mill within the Buckshaw part of the ward that is possibly rated as a public building. And there is some confusion between the two polling stations in the two community centres in the Chorley part of Buckshaw, because the Lancaster Drive out behind Chorley Costa is used by the Chorley Borough for their polling station, and the main community centre by us. And we have had people coming to the wrong polling station. And I don't know whether that reduces the vote or whether people, having walked to one, then walk to the other. But there is no alternative place. And the same is true. I've looked at Worden Park. You couldn't have parking where it is and then down in the hall. It's just too far apart. So we're left with two polling stations outside of the ward, which is not ideal, but is the best we can do.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Tomlinson is quite right, of course, that we've looked many times at where these polling stations could be and whether they could have them in a more suitable place. And obviously, since the Masonic Hall closed, which was central in the ward, basically, and a very helpful place, I think, for the community that to live there, go and vote. I mean, that's been closed for a number of years now, and we have struggled to find another place within the ward itself. And it just seems to me that Worden Park, it's a short hop and a skip across the road for most people, or it's somewhere that everybody knows. I'll just ask if it will be considered, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'm sure it will be considered. I'm going to ask the
members of the public if you
Thank you for that. Could I ask if there's any members of the public who's got any comments? No. I go to Councillor Alty to sum up then, please.
I'd just like to remind the members in the room of the details of the consultation that are contained within the papers. On point 9, all councillors and parish councils were consulted regarding the proposed polling places and polling districts, and no objections were raised. South Ribble Together and South Ribble Partnership were also consulted, and no comments were received. As part of South Ribble, Borough falls within the Ribble Valley parliamentary constituency. Ribble Valley Borough Council were consulted. No comments have been received. The proposals have also been available on the council's website for members of the public. 7 responses were received as part of the consultation, with no objections to the recommendations suggested. However, alternative venues for polling stations were suggested as part of the consultation, and these were rejected as they were not suitable. Members have the information in front of them. I'd like, that's fine for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Alty. We are going to move to the vote. Which members are ready? So that has been carried. According to all the recommendations that we've got down. Thank you. Moving on to item 13, changes to the contract procedure rules as a result of the implementation of the Procurement Act 2023. And this item's for decision, so can I please ask the Chair of Governance Committee, Councillor Wesley Roberts, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In front of us, we have a report to amend the contract procedure rules. Governance Committee endorsed these changes in the November meeting that we held. The main points and changes are raised from paragraph 11. In summary, They make our rules more accessible, transparent and robust. I'd like to thank the team who have put an enormous amount of effort into these changes led by Taz. I would urge full council to approve these so we are compliant with the legislation that comes into force next month. I'd like to move that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the council? No. Any questions from the general public? No. So we're now at the end of the debate on this proposal. So can we take a vote on that, please? That has been carried. Thank you. Moving to item 14, Gambling Act 2000 policy. This again is for a decision. Can I please ask the Chair of Licensing and Public Safety Committee, well, I'm asking Jane Bell, but obviously she's not here unless she can, I don't think, is anybody, could anybody, sorry, Councillor Farnworth?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to propose this as the Cabinet Member for Licensing in absence of Councillor Bell being here tonight. So agenda item 14 is a report which proposes to renew the Council's gambling policy to comply with the Gambling Act 2005, with South Ribble Borough Council being the area's licensing authority. I'd like to thank Chris Ward, our licensing manager, for producing the report, and I want to give thanks to our licensing team who all strive to protect our residents. Local authorities renew their policy every 3 years, and our policy was last adopted in 2022 and due to expire on the 31st of January. By approving this report, Council will exercise its function under the Gambling Act 2005, and the policy will be implemented from the 31st of January this year until the 31st of January 2028. I understand that the matter came before the Licensing Committee in November and was passed at the recent meeting on the 14th of January. We've already held consultation period of 4 weeks and have displayed notices here at the Civic Centre and as well as on the Council's website. Members should note that there's no major changes to the proposals and the new policy, and there has been a change in the local area profile which shows locality and of gambling premises as well as an expanded population. I understand that government is looking at changes to legislation, but we don't expect this to be done until the next year. So I'd like to propose this item for approval, and I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the council? No. Any questions from members of the public? Okay, so can we move to the vote then, please? That has been carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 15, which is a notice of motion. This item is for a decision. Can I please ask the proposer of the motion, Councillor David Howarth, to present the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's now recognised that climate and nature crises are inextricably linked. We simply cannot solve the climate crisis without solving the nature crisis and vice versa. The Climate Change Act does not recognise the interconnectedness of climate and nature. In October So in October, Dr. Ross Savage, the Liberal Democrat Member of Parliament for South Cotswolds, introduced the Climate and Nature Bill as her private member's bill. A Climate and Nature Act would ensure that the UK government responds to both the need to reduce our carbon emissions and to recover nature at the same time. As many of our efforts to accelerate emissions reductions, particularly through technology, could unintentionally harm nature, it's crucial that we approach these challenges in tandem, balancing innovation with nature's restoration. To combat climate change effectively, we need our ecosystems to be healthy. I'm grateful, therefore, to the government for agreeing to work with the Liberal Democrat members of Parliament in the Commons to actually move to achieve these aims. Unfortunately, to arrive at that position, it was agreed to end any further debate on the private members' bill in Parliament, and therefore we no longer have a bill to support. So on that basis, I am withdrawing the motion.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Howarth.
To speak,
I don't really rejected it. I don't see the reason. Councillor Olsey, did you want to comment?
Yes. All right, glasses. I'd just like to refer to a statement that can be found on 0 Hour, the organisers of the cross-party campaign, published on their official Twitter X account on the 13th of January 2025. We're delighted that Paul Foster MP, the UK Labour MP for South Ribble, has joined the cross-party campaign for the Climate and Nature Bill. Welcome, Paul. As leader, Paul was passionate about the local environment and climate and is as committed as ever to delivering positive change in respect to the climate and environment. Liberal Democrat MP Ross Savage has decided to work with Labour government to find the best way forward, and Paul will be as engaged as he possibly can be in that process.
Right, could you just give us a second, please, Councillor?
Thank you.
I'll
motion.
finish with it now then. Okay. Councillor Green.
Order, Mr. Mayor, is the motion has been withdrawn and therefore there shouldn't be a debate on a non-existent motion.
Okay. There's no debate. There is no debate, so I think we can leave it at that. So thank you very much for that. We move on to item 16, questions to the Leader of the Council. Are there any questions from any members of the Council? Councillor Burrows.
Thank you. To the Leader, following on from the question that I asked at the last meeting of full Council regarding the £2 million committed by the Council for the upgrading of the 3 trading areas in Penwortham, have to date not received the promised response from you. As many residents of Middleford are awaiting progress of this scheme, in the Kingsfold trading area, as well as Middleford, and given that Liverpool Road appears to have had a substantial investment, I ask, are you able to now answer my question and say when the upgrading work in the Kingsfold and Middleford trading areas will commence? And given the amount of work undertaken in the Liverpool Road trading area, how much of the £2 million is left to complete the rest of the planned upgrading? Can I just add that my residents and business owners are very interested in this project, and it does feel that the lower and east side of Penwortham is being overlooked, and people want to feel valued and invested in, not second class to the higher and west side of Penwortham. So given 2 months have gone by, I would welcome your answers to my questions.
Councillor Olsey, I'm just saying that I've also got another question to come. Would you like to wait till then, or would you want to answer now? Yeah. Thank you.
Very kindly supported by my colleague next to me. I'd first like to apologise. I was remiss in not answering you. And I don't want to promise anything I can't deliver. So I'm going to say I'm going to come back to you, and I promise within 2 days I will have the information that you want, that we've got already. I can promise publicly, I'm happy to promise that the 3 areas identified will be started and will be finished, and there is no intention to kind of postpone things or let time pass and nothing happen. So if you can give me those 2 days, which I know will be very gracious of you, I will have an answer for you then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I have Councillor Caleb Tomlinson?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm sorry to spring this on you, Councillor Alty, but it's nice and gentle. I don't know whether you've seen a recent survey that was taken for a cross-section of our society amongst children aged 9 to 15. And the question was put to them, what is the most important word to you? The answer given, and this should be for all of us this, because young people think differently. They think with an innocence that's fantastic, and their answer was kindness. With this in mind, would the leader agree with me that the future of this country in the hands of these people is secure and happy? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Do you want to respond?
I think kindness is key. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I have Councillor David Howarth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to go back to the last question that was asked. So, in the kindest possible way, would the leader agree with me that if Councillor Burrows actually did some homework and stopped making misleading statements about Liverpool Road and Penwortham in general, there is a Penwortham master plan which includes the Liverpool Road District Centre, Middlefirth and Kingsfold. And she's also made statements about all this money that's been spent on Liverpool Road. To the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any money spent on Liverpool Road since Councillor Smith was the cabinet member, and we spent about £100,000 on some planters and better signage. So this myth that's being put about by Councillor Burrows that everything's going into Liverpool Road and the council spent all this money. The only people who spent money so far on Liverpool Road are the actual business owners themselves in improving their frontages. And the whole point of the master plan is to enhance that in all 3 areas to attract more people into those shopping areas. And would the leader also agree with me that if Councillor Burrows had taken up the invitation to attend briefings with officers, which were offered to every single Penwortham councillor, or if you couldn't get there, bothered to go to the planning committee at the town council, where officers also came to explain the Penwortham master plans, she wouldn't be standing up in council and making fatuous statements that don't hold any water.
Can I say, Councillor Howarth, that I don't think it was a question, that it was more of a statement. So I don't really think the leader needs to respond to. Thank you for that. Yeah, can I have Councillor Forshaw, please?
Leader, as the feeling is strong on this within the public, does she agree with the likes of Andy Burnham, Sarah Champion and Dan Colden, to name a few from the Labour side, as well as large numbers of our community and I? And will the leader back the call for a national inquiry into the so-called Pakistani rape gangs? And if so, will she write to the relevant government departments to support one?
So you want to know whether I agree with Andy Burnham, Sarah and a group of other people, so-called Pakistani race. Oh, you want to know if I'm going to back the call for further interventions? And okay, I don't think that there is any intention not to look at those matters. I think popular press has a way of framing things that kind of stirs fear, agitation, makes us all a little bit uncertain. And whether or not I agree with Andy Burnham or anybody else, I have a history of safeguarding and caring for some of the most vulnerable in our society, some of which I might add were part of the grooming situation. So I, like every other well-intentioned, knowledgeable individual, will make those contacts with government officials. I don't need to be asked a public question about whether or not I think something. I demonstrate it every day. And with my council work, with my personal work, there is no place. If you have a real interest in that area and you have a real passion for it, asking me if I agree with somebody is not going to make me behave any differently. I am passionate about safeguarding social justice, equality, diversity and inclusion, and in looking after the most vulnerable. So that question was not necessary. I'm already engaged in that process. I already lobby where I feel it's necessary.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Pillinger. Sorry, it's Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. I've just got one more question. It's okay. It's regarding the resignation of the former councillor for Middleford Ward, Will Adams. It's been brought to my attention that Mr. Adams's profile is still live on the Lancashire Teaching Hospital Governing Council's webpage. The webpage notes that Mr. Adams is the appointed representative of South Ribble Borough Council. So can this be right? So my two questions are, if so, when will Mr. Adams' term of office conclude? And importantly, is Mr. Adams reporting back to this council on any relevant matters, as would be expected, I would assume, of appointed representative? And the second one, if this is an oversight, when will this position be reallocated to another elected member, and the Lancashire Teaching Hospital Trust informed? Thank you.
Councillor Olsey.
Assure that a replacement for Councillor Adams, as was, is in place. It's going to form part of a report to council, and it's Councillor Lou Jackson who now occupies that seat. If that's not on our website, then we can effect that change. But if it's on Lancashire Hospitals, then somebody else, perhaps if you could contact them and tell them who we've put in place. But we will make that connection anyway. But Councillor Lou Jackson is now the representative. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Pillinger.
I've spoken too much this evening, but the question from Councillor Forshaw about rape gangs really troubles me because of the way it was put. I don't know how many of you know about the Glasgow trial recently. That was a group of entirely white European men grooming young white girls. It's not just
Councillor Pillinger, this is meant to be just questions. We're not having a debate on anything, so I'm going to stop you there if that's all right. Thank you. We've got Councillor Forshaw.
Come back.
You're allowed one. Yep.
I didn't really feel the leader answered any question. I answered the question I asked. So does she, or does she not, for clarity, as the leader of this council, back a national inquiry into the Pakistani rape gangs?
Councillor Olsey.
I will have to come back to you on that. Not because I don't agree. And not, you see, your smiley face tells me that you're politicking, and I don't want to give in to that. I don't want to respond to it. So, no, those sorts of questions could be asked outside of a chamber where we could have a one-to-one conversation. You're using it as a platform.
Councillor Alty, could I just ask you, you did reply, you said you would let him know. So as far as I'm concerned, you've answered the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Councillor Roberts.
Councillor Roberts?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Would the leader of the council agree that all councillors should conduct themselves in line with the Nolan principles outlined at the front of the agenda meeting, and that includes when we are asking questions?
I would indeed.
No more questions. Any questions from Yeah, I've got a questions being received in advance from a member of the public, and I think you're aware of that, leader. Are you okay to take that?
Yes.
Thank you.
So a member of the public sent a letter to me saying, I was astonished when I watched a replay of the last council meeting when the leader of the council, Councillor Alty, stated, it don't matter how long you are on the phone to the council as long as you get the right answer. As a working person with limited breaks during the working day to make calls to the council, I have had to listen to Spanish music for over 20 plus minutes in the past and have abandoned my call and get back to work. Perhaps a leader should read the Customer Access Charter and learn the ethos of how a modern call centre operates. The basic idea is to answer calls quickly with limited knowledge, either provided by training or a knowledge tree database. If the query is more complicated, take the details and pass the inquiry to the relevant department and inform the customer that the relevant department will get back to them, thus fielding calls quickly and effectively. The people of South Ribble deserve a fast, efficient service. My question is, what percentage of calls are answered in 90s as per customer charter? So the first question, perhaps right, basic idea. Yeah. First question is, what percentage of calls are answered in 90s as per the customer charter? My response is too few or not enough, because we haven't reached the target, but we will carry on trying. And I would like to apologise to Mr. S. Cooper for leaving him with the impression that I didn't care. It all matters, but it has to be taken in with a wider picture. But I do appreciate the question. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Alty. Are there any further questions from any members of the public here this evening? No? Okay. We move on to item 17, questions to Cabinet members. I'm going to take these in order. So there's questions. Yeah, sorry, I've got these were questions for the Deputy Leader. I've got Councillor Tomlinson just.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Deputy Leader was keen that I explain because of childcare issues, the time here was limited. If there are any questions, she's happy to accept them and will, of course, give people a written answer.
Thank you for that. So are there any questions from any members of the council? No, all right. Any members of the general public? Yes, could you come forward, please? Mr. Thorpe.
Could I refer to Councillor Watkinson again on item 9?
No, this is not.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
If you want to speak to Councillor Watkinson, you'll have to speak when we get to that area.
Right, okay.
These are for questions for the deputy leader.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So you just, right, okay. So there's no questions from the general public. Thank you for that. So can I move? Thank you for acknowledging that, Councillor Tomlinson. Thanks for the offer. Can we move on now to questions for the Cabinet Member, Finance, Assets and Commercialisation, which is Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Any questions from members of the Council? No. Any questions from members of the public? Is that a yes or a no?
Yes, there is.
All right, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My question is, I've sent it in before as an email to Matthew, it is next week, it's February 2025. The toilets on Worden Park, the project started in February 2023. The toilets still are not operating. The communication about where the other available toilets has been poor, despite sort of ringing the park manager up a number of times. Finally, this week, there's a notice on the door telling people where the toilets are. The maps are out of date. The whole project has been appallingly handled. And in one of your meetings, you said every project in this council is green. Well, surely the toilet move for about 300 metres must be red. I was wondering, you can tell me when the toilets will be open so I can get me 20 pence ready. Thank you.
And thank you for your question, and particularly thanks for the advance notice, which is always helpful in enabling people to give a full response. Can I say, first of all, I share entirely your frustration with this. We're in the hands of United Utilities, though. The toilets were actually moved about 18 months ago. It was in the late summer of 2023. We're still waiting for United. So everything that we can do, we've done. And that's why it's marked green. So the green isn't, the project is completed. It's we've done what we can. So electrical supply, the waste supply is done. What we need now is mains water supply. And that has to come in from the other side of Worden Lane, near its junction with Vickersfield Lane. And that means liaising with Lancashire County Council because the road will have to be closed. But we are entirely in their hands. It's incredibly frustrating. I wish it had been completed a long time ago. I do accept the premise of your question about signage. It's a perfectly valid question, one I've raised in the past. And we have in the past put temporary laminated signs up on the barriers, but it's an open space that's subject to the elements and vandalism, and those signs have been not here today, gone tomorrow, but I'm told that they're there, and then the next time you look, they're not. I'm hoping the new signage, which, let's be honest, has been put up in response to your question, so your question has had a positive effect. Let's hope that will be a bit more permanent and robust. You did ask some other questions, which I'm happy to email you back, or I might as well tell you while you're here. How much was the cost? The cost of the total project of resiting those toilets is £30,000, but that was all done within the annual parks maintenance and upkeep budget. So there wasn't a discrete budget for it. It just came out of the parks budget. The whole point of moving the toilets there was it's convenient for people, excuse the pun, none intended, but it was where they were previously sited at one of the main walkways for the park was thought to be unsightly and was actually brought up during one of our Green Flag Park inspections. So I fully support the decision to move it. I wish we could move United Utilities on a bit quicker. Sadly, we're in their hands, and despite our urging, we don't have the power for them to instruct them to give us a date when they will come. But we will. I'll keep an eye on that signage
and should anything happening to it in the future, has to be straight on to the Parks Department. Thanks again for your question. And as I say, I do share your frustration with the length of time it's all taken.
I had words with Sarah, I think it's Beardsworth at United Utilities, the Chief Exec's office this afternoon, and they went through the whole process. They said that they required 3 months' notice with plans and approval from Lancashire County Council. So I'm still mystified how the French can virtually refurbish Notre Dame in 5 years and we can't do a toilet in 2 years for 300 metres. That's just my comment on the thing.
Do you want to answer?
I do, yeah, because I agree entirely. I agree entirely, and it speaks much to what is wrong with this country. Everything is broken, nothing works, you can't get anything done, and when you try to get anything done, you go through a 4 or 5 year consultation process. HS2 had 8,500 planning applications associated with it. 8,500 planning applications, and then we wonder why it didn't get delivered and why the cost went up. To get anything done in this country at the moment is incredibly difficult and I used the word before, incredibly frustrated. We commissioned United Utilities to do the work in August 23. We asked them and commissioned them to do the work in August 23, and here we are in February 25 and it's still not been done. I'm not privy to the internal workings of United Utilities, but I can tell you what we did. And I don't know how many times I can use this word. I'm incredibly frustrated, as you are. Please be assured we're using our best efforts to get it finished.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other members of the public want to speak? No. Thank you for that. Can we now move on to questions for the Cabinet Member, Customer Services and Digital, Councillor Colin Sharples. Are there any questions for Councillor Sharples from the Council? No, thank you. Any questions from any members of the public? No. Okay, thank you for that. Can we move on to questions for the Cabinet Member, Economic Growth, Planning and Investment, Councillor Ian Watkinson. So are there any questions from Council members? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise firstly to apologise for my lateness, but you'll all be getting home safer tonight, and travelling to work tomorrow. Councillor Watkinson, as we are part of or signed up to CPRE, which I am a representative, do you agree with me that I find it's quite mystifying that someone who advocates the green belt and its virtues would then suggest that houses be built on another borough's green belt? Thank you.
Councillor, do you want to respond?
Yes.
Thanks for that. Sorry, yes was the answer. I was saying yes, we want to respond. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other members of the council? Any members of the public? Yes, Mr. Thorpe.
Watkinson, on the public consultation dates in the CLLP documentation, it says that consultation will begin at various drop-ins starting in February. Have you any dates yet as to when those and where those drop-in dates will take place?
I'll need to get back to you on that one. I have seen the list, and so if you'll bear with me, I'll respond to you in writing on that one if you've got the details. But there are dates set for all the different community hub areas, so I'll get back to you with that.
And just one other question. I'm just wondering, in consultation with the general public and getting that information out to residents, would it not be a good idea to write to residents rather than going through public media? Because I'm probably one person of the 100,000 of your residents that sat here, to reinforce it's such an important situation, this local plan, for people to, be consulted with, as you've been promoting this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Thorpe. It's a great point, and we are going to do that. We're looking to engage in as many ways as possible, and the written format will be one of those.
Is that all right, Mr. Thorpe? Thank you very much. Can we move on to the questions for Cabinet Member Culture, Community, Wealth, Building and Licensing? Councillor Matthew Farnworth. Any questions for Councillor Farnworth from the Council? No? Okay. Any questions from the general public? No? Okay, thank you very much for that. Can we move on to questions for the Cabinet Member Leisure and Wellbeing? Councillor Claire Hunter. Any questions from council members? No. Any questions from members of the public? No, thank you. We'll move on then. Questions for Cabinet Member Environment and Street Scene, Councillor Kath Unsworth. Are there any questions for Councillor Unsworth from the Council? No, we're moving on now. Okay, any questions from members of the public? Oh, we've got a question. Sorry, I missed that. I've got a from Councillor George Rea.
Hello, Councillor Unsworth. I'm sorry, this is slightly becoming my specialist subject. Just wondered if you had any updates for the council about the progress of our new bins.
Councillor Unsworth?
No progress.
No. Very good. You've got the answer, Councillor Rea? Thank you very much. Any other questions from the council? No. Any questions from members of the public? No. Okay then. I have no urgent items as any other business, so I now declare the meeting closed and thank you all for your attendance.